Earth had always been a place of peace. Its skies were clear, and life on the planet was as it always had been, busy, chaotic, but calm. However, there was something off. A strange unease seemed to hang in the air, something that couldn't be explained, but felt by everyone. Across the planet, people went about their daily routines, unaware of the storm that was about to break. In the far reaches of the solar system, just beyond the range of Earth's most advanced telescopes, something enormous moved, unseen, unheard. A fleet of massive ships belonging to the Galactic Empire arrived in complete silence. They had cloaked themselves using technology far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. This cloaking technology was so advanced that it made them completely invisible to every sensor Earth had. The Empire's fleet could have easily slipped through Earth's defenses undetected, and that's exactly what happened. As Earth's defenders were distracted by the calm, an invisible threat moved closer, looming over the planet. The first sign of trouble came when Earth's communication satellites suddenly began to malfunction. The signals became garbled, and in some places, they completely stopped working. At first, no one understood what was happening. Was it a technical glitch, or something far worse? But then, the silence in the air seemed to deepen. It wasn't just the communication systems that failed. Something larger was at play, something far more sinister. Civilians began to feel a strange sense of unease. The world's leaders, stationed in the bustling defense command centers, suddenly found themselves on edge, watching their screens as the strange interference continued. The satellites were just the beginning of a much greater disturbance. Then, it happened. Without warning, a massive ship decloaked right above Earth. The people on the planet watched in awe and terror as a colossal vessel, bigger than anything they had ever imagined, became visible. It appeared out of nowhere, like a shadow cast across the sky, blocking out the sun for a moment. The ship was enormous, with sharp, menacing edges, like an ancient beast with a modern, terrifying form. The sheer size of it made humanity's greatest warships seem like toys in comparison. From the massive ship, a clear, cold message was broadcast across the globe. Surrender or be obliterated. The voice, automated and emotionless, echoed across every radio and television on Earth, sending shockwaves through humanity. The message was simple. Earth's days of peace were over. The Galactic Empire had come to conquer, and they would not stop until their will was done. Panic rippled through the streets as people turned their eyes skyward, watching in disbelief as the ship hovered above them. Governments scrambled to respond, but the warning had been clear. The Empire had arrived. In every corner of Earth, soldiers, scientists, and civilians tried to make sense of the situation. But the more they tried to understand, the more helpless they felt. What could they do? They had no weapons to face such an overwhelming force. In the heart of Earth's military operations, Captain Jack Steele stood in a room full of tense officers, his jaw clenched. His mind raced as he looked at the data streaming across the screens. He had been trained for many scenarios, but this was unlike anything he had ever seen. His thoughts were interrupted by the voice of his second-in-command, Major Carlson. "Sir, it's not just the satellites. We're picking up strange energy signals from the fleet. It's like they're jamming everything. Communications, navigation, even our radar. They're completely undetectable." Steele's fists tightened. His worst fears had been realized. The Galactic Empire was no ordinary enemy. This wasn't a rival nation, or even a coalition of alien races. It was something much more dangerous. These invaders didn't just have superior technology. They controlled it with an ease and precision that Earth's military couldn't even begin to understand. Just then, the screens in front of them flashed with an alarming message. The ship above Earth was not alone. There were dozens, if not hundreds, of others now on cloakings in the skies. Each one was more formidable than any warship humanity had ever built. Captain Steele turned to his team, his face grim. "Prepare for the worst." Above them, the alien fleet began to descend. The massive ships moved in perfect formation, their shadows casting over Earth's major cities. People below were helpless, their eyes wide in terror as they realized the full scale of what was happening. There was no way to hide from this threat. The very atmosphere around Earth felt heavy, as though the planet itself knew something was about to change forever. The moment was surreal. There was no sound, no warning sirens blaring in the streets. The only noise was the hum of the ship's engines, like the calm before an inevitable storm. And then, the message came again, this time more forceful. Surrender or be obliterated. For the first time in history, humanity realized they were not at the top of the food chain. A new power had arrived, one so advanced that humanity stood no chance in open battle. Fear gripped the hearts of the planet's leaders as they tried to respond to the impossible situation. What could they do? Could they fight back? Or would they be forced to surrender without a fight? But one thing was certain. Earth's future had just become uncertain. The storm was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. As the first wave of alien warships began to descend upon Earth, it became painfully clear that humanity was at the mercy of a force far superior in technology and firepower. The planet's military systems were in disarray, unable to detect or fight back against the invisible alien ships. Panic gripped the world's governments, and the people had little hope left. But in the face of this overwhelming threat, one man stood up, Captain Jack Steele. Captain Steele, once a part of the military's Special Operations Unit, now found himself thrust into the most important role of his life, leading humanity's resistance. With no time to waste, he took charge of Earth's remaining military forces, directing them to strategic locations and attempting to mount a defense despite the impossible odds. However, even the most elite soldiers could do little against an enemy that controlled cloaking technology and weapons that outmatched anything Earth had ever seen. In the midst of the chaos, Steele sought the help of Dr. Selena Park, a brilliant scientist known for her work in advanced energy systems. Dr. Park had spent years studying the behavior of alien technology, though she never imagined she'd be forced to use her knowledge in such dire circumstances. Together, Steele and Dr. Park formed an unlikely partnership, combining military strategy with scientific innovation. Their goal was clear: find a way to disable the alien ships. It seemed nearly impossible, but they knew one thing for sure. The aliens were not prepared for the unpredictability of human nature. Despite their superior technology, they had underestimated humanity's willpower. Steele and Dr. Park believed that if they could exploit the alien fleet's weaknesses, they might have a chance to fight back. The first step was to understand the alien fleet's power source and communication systems. While the ships remained cloaked, there were subtle signs they could track: energy signatures, minor disruptions in their cloaking systems, and the faintest hint of radiation emissions. With the help of Dr. Park's advanced AI program, they began to analyze these patterns. At the same time, the alien forces began their first wave of attacks. The skies erupted with explosions as the invaders launched devastating strikes on major cities, obliterating buildings and creating chaos on the ground. The cities, once filled with life and bustling activity, were now battlegrounds. Alien ships hovered above, firing laser beams that incinerated anything in their path. Panic spread like wildfire across the planet, and the military was unable to mount a sufficient defense. But in the face of total destruction, a small group of resistance fighters stood firm. Sergeant Daniel Bonner, a seasoned veteran of Earth's military forces, knew that he couldn't just sit back and wait for help. He gathered a small team of soldiers, each of whom had lost everything to the alien invasion, and set out to protect the civilians trapped in the war-torn city. Their mission was simple: rescue as many people as possible and hold off the alien invaders until reinforcements could arrive. In the chaos of the urban battleground, Bonner and his team fought tooth and nail against the alien forces. The streets were a war zone, buildings crumbling under the intense firepower of the invaders. The resistance soldiers moved swiftly through the city, using guerrilla tactics to stay hidden from the alien ship's scanners. but it was clear that they were vastly outmatched. Bonner led his team into the heart of the city, where a group of civilians had been trapped. The aliens had already begun their ground assault, and the streets were filled with the sounds of explosions and gunfire. The team fought through the chaos, rescuing civilians and holding off the aliens with everything they had. Bonner's leadership inspired his team to fight harder than they ever had before. But just as they reached the final group of survivors, the worst happened. A blast from an alien energy weapon struck Bonner directly, sending him flying into a nearby building. His team rushed to his side, but it was clear that the injury was fatal. Bonner, with his last breath, managed to smile weakly at his comrades. "Keep fighting," he whispered. "For Earth." The loss of Sergeant Bonner was a crushing blow to the resistance. His sacrifice, however, ignited something inside humanity that hadn't been there before, a fire, a rallying cry. The resistance wasn't just a group of soldiers anymore. It was a movement, a cause that brought people together. Bonner's death gave the world something to fight for, the future of their species. With Bonner's death, Captain Steele's resolve only grew stronger. The resistance, now united under a common cause, began to regroup and strengthen their forces. Steele and Dr. Park continued to develop their countermeasures, determined to find a way to cripple the alien fleet. The odds were still against them, but with the spirit of human determination dragging them forward. They knew they couldn't give up. The fight for Earth was just beginning, and the first true spark of hope had been ignited. As the resistance began to take shape, the world saw its first real victory in the war against the alien invaders. Humanity had shown the Galactic Empire that they were not going down without a fight. The battle for Earth had begun, and the aliens would soon realize that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology. It was their unyielding will to survive. The fight was on, and humanity would not surrender. The peaceful skies above Earth were shattered in an instant as the Galactic Empire unleashed its fury. In an attempt to break humanity's resolve and wipe out any possibility of resistance, the aliens launched a massive orbital bombardment. Hundreds of their warships, hovering in low Earth orbit, unleashed a storm of devastating energy beams, raining destruction down on Earth's major cities. The initial bombardment was so intense that it felt like the world itself was coming to an end. Humanity's military forces, already struggling with the aliens' cloaking technology, were now hopelessly outclassed by the Empire's weapons. Earth's most advanced defense systems had no power to stop the devastating assault. Alien warships unleashed torrents of laser fire, obliterating skyscrapers and entire districts, while on the ground, human soldiers fought desperately to protect what remained of their cities. Despite the overwhelming power of the invaders, humanity's spirit had not broken. Jack Steele, now firmly in command, knew that if humanity was to have any chance of survival, they had to strike back, no matter the odds. The odds, however, seemed insurmountable. The alien warships, equipped with advanced cloaking technology and energy weapons that could decimate entire cities with a single shot, were far superior to anything Earth had in its arsenal. Yet Steele remained unshaken. As the destruction rained down on the Earth below, he knew that he had to lead his troops into the heart of the battle. He formulated a plan to mount a daring counterattack, an attack against the heart of the alien invasion itself, their flagship hovering just above Earth's atmosphere. If they could take down the flagship, it might turn the tide in humanity's favor. The plan was risky. Steele's team would need to breach the alien flagship's defenses, which were nearly impenetrable, and disable its weapon systems. The odds were slim, but Steele believed they had one advantage: their unpredictability. The Empire had underestimated humanity's resilience. Now they would learn just how far humans were willing to go to protect their home. As Steele prepared his forces for the attack, Dr. Selena Park worked tirelessly on a weapon she hoped would level the playing field. Over the past few days, she had made a breakthrough in her research, discovering a potential weakness in the alien fleet's energy shields. It was a long shot, but if the weapon could be modified to exploit that weakness, It might just be the key to victory. With limited time, Selena and her team of scientists worked around the clock to finish the weapon. Meanwhile, in space, the battle intensified. Earth's military forces, led by Steele's orders, launched an attack on the flagship. Fighters raced through the atmosphere, dodging laser blasts from the alien ships. The dogfights in space were chaotic, with human ships narrowly avoiding death as they engaged the alien warships. Explosions lit up the sky as missiles collided with shields and space debris from the shattered warships rained down on Earth below. On the ground, the battle raged in the streets of Earth's major cities. Despite being outgunned and outmatched, human soldiers fought with fierce determination. They had no choice but to fight on. Civilians who had managed to survive the initial bombardment were now caught in the crossfire, hiding in underground shelters, hoping for a glimmer of hope. Soldiers ran through crumbling streets, seeking to protect the innocent while holding off the alien invaders at all costs. As Jack Steele led the counterattack into the heart of space, the tension was palpable. His team had already faced insurmountable odds, but they pushed forward, their mission clear. The flagship had to fall, with his team's ship narrowly escaping the deadly barrage of alien fire. Steele's heart raced with every near miss. There was no turning back now. In the midst of the chaos, the resistance forces on Earth fought with everything they had left. Sergeant Bonner's sacrifice had sparked something inside them, a fire that would not be extinguished. His death had not been in vain. It had only strengthened their resolve to continue the fight. With every shot fired, every building destroyed, and every life lost, humanity's spirit remained unbroken. The city's streets, now filled with smoke and fire, stood as a testament to the determination of Earth's defenders. As the flagship loomed larger on the horizon, Steele's fighter squadron closed in. The final moments were intense, filled with narrow escapes and near-fatal crashes. The air was thick with the sounds of laser fire, explosions, and the screams of battle. But Steele's resolve never wavered. With a sudden, coordinated strike, Earth's fighters launched a full-scale assault on the flagship's exterior, targeting the weak points in the ship's defenses. Just as the flagship seemed on the verge of total destruction, the weapon Selena had developed was deployed. With a flash of energy, the alien ship's shields flickered. For the first time since the invasion began, the alien forces were on the back foot. The tide of the battle had shifted. The humans had done it. Against all odds, Earth's military forces had struck back, and the first wave of the Galactic Empire's fleet had been dealt a significant blow. The battle was far from over, but the resistance had proven that they were not helpless in the face of overwhelming odds. Humanity had shown the Galactic Empire that they were not just survivors. They were warriors. The conflict was far from over, but for the first time, humanity had hope. Jack Steele and his team had set the stage for the battle to come, and the aliens now knew that they would have to fight for every inch of Earth's soil. The battle had only just begun, but the war was far from over. Humanity was ready to fight, and they were not going to stop until they won. As Earth's defenders fought valiantly on the surface below, Captain Jack Steele and his elite team made their way into the heart of the Galactic Empire's fleet. Their target, the Empire's flagship, the massive ag-controlled warship, a living fortress that housed the command center for the entire invasion. If they could plant the EMP devices deep within the ship's core, it would disable the fleet's systems and neutralize the alien weapons, buying humanity the time they desperately needed. But the path to the flagship was anything but easy. Steele's team infiltrated the enemy's defenses with a precision born of desperation. Their movements were swift and coordinated as they boarded the colossal vessel, evading the alien patrols and skirting the ever-watchful eyes of the ship's eye. The fate of humanity rested on this mission, and each of them knew the risks involved. The atmosphere aboard the flagship was tense, the quiet hum of the alien technology almost deafening. But there was no turning back now. They had come too far. Inside the ship, Selena's modified EMP devices were ready. With the help of Dr. Selena Park's genius, the team planted the devices in key locations, targeting the ship's primary systems. The countdown began. The fate of the galaxy was seconds away from changing forever. As the final device was set, they received the signal to leave the flagship's core. But the moment they began to retreat, the alarms began to blare. The ship's cloaking mechanism had been deactivated, and the team was surrounded. The ambush came without warning. Alien soldiers, previously hidden in the shadows, descended upon them in waves. A brutal firefight erupted in the heart of the flagship, the sound of laser blasts echoing through the metallic corridors. Steel, ever the leader, shouted orders to his team as they fought tooth and nail to keep the aliens at bay. The team was vastly outnumbered, but their training, their drive, and their desperation kept them alive. Each of them knew that the EMP devices had only a limited window before the alien systems recovered. They had to make it out alive. Meanwhile, Selena's technology worked, for the time being. The EMP blasts sent shockwaves through the alien fleet's systems, disabling their weapons and shields, but it was only a matter of time before the Empire would adapt and recover. They needed to finish the fight before that happened. Steele's eyes were set on the prize, the flagship. If they could destroy it, humanity would have a fighting chance. But as the team fought their way through the corridors, the true power of the flagship began to reveal itself. The ship was no ordinary vessel. It was controlled by an advanced AI, one that had the power to adapt to human tactics and evolve in real time. The team fought through waves of AI-controlled drones, mechanical warriors with inhuman strength and precision. The drones moved in unison, like a single entity, each one anticipating their every move. Every step forward was a battle. Every inch gained was hard-earned. The team moved with military precision, but the odds were stacked against them. The real turning point came when Steele received the devastating news that Sergeant Bonner's younger brother, Private Jared Bonner, had been killed in the firefight. The news hit hard. Jared had been a quiet young soldier, someone who had joined the resistance to protect his family and his home. His death was not only a personal blow to Steele and his team, but to the cause itself. The loss of a soldier so young, so full of promise, would not be in vain. Jared's sacrifice would fuel their final push. As Steele's team made their way through the ship, the weight of Bonner's death hung heavily over them. His brother's last words had been about protecting humanity's future. Now they would fulfill that mission. Steele's resolve hardened. The death of another soldier, one so close to their hearts, added an emotional layer to their mission. This wasn't just about saving Earth anymore. It was about honoring those who had fallen in the fight. They were the ones who had pushed humanity to this point, and they would see this through to the end. As the team reached the heart of the flagship, they faced the final obstacle, the AI itself. It manifested in the form of a massive neural network, controlling every aspect of the ship. It was not just a machine. It was an enemy capable of thought, strategy, and combat. The AI controlled the drones, the shields, and the weapons. It was the Empire's true weapon, the force that had led them to dominate countless worlds. But now it was in their sights. In the final moments of their mission, Steele and his team fought desperately. Explosions rocked the flagship as the EMP devices began to overload. Sparks flew from damaged circuits, and the ship groaned under the strain of the attack. The drones that had once seemed unstoppable now faltered, their movements sluggish as the EMP's effects spread through the flagship's systems. The team pushed forward, their energy waning, but their determination never faltering. The battle culminated in a tense showdown in the heart of the AI's control room. Lasers flew through the air, explosions rocked the walls, and the AI's final weapon, an enormous drone the size of a battleship, emerged from the shadows. It was the last line of defense, and it seemed invincible. But Steele's team fought back, knowing that humanity's survival rested on this moment. With one final surge of energy, they activated the last EMP device. The flagship's eye faltered, its systems shutting down one by one. The ship's power dimmed, and for the first time since the invasion began, The aliens lost control. The fight wasn't over, but they had done it. The flagship was destroyed. Humanity had struck the final blow. The cost had been high, but they had won the battle. The Empire's fleet was crippled, and Earth had a chance to survive. Steele and his team had done the impossible. Humanity had won their last stand. But the war was far from over, and the aliens would return. The fight was just beginning. The final battle had begun. With the EMP devices successfully deployed, humanity's forces began to see the first glimmer of hope. The advanced technology of the Galactic Empire, once thought unstoppable, began to falter. Alien warships that had been an impenetrable wall of death started losing their power. Shields flickered and weapons failed as the EMP waves spread through their fleet like wildfire. The massive war machines of the invaders, once so precise and deadly, became disoriented and vulnerable. The Empire's stronghold was crumbling, and Earth's forces, fueled by sheer determination, seized the opportunity. The tide of the battle had shifted. Earth's military forces, long outclassed by the Empire's advanced weaponry, had been given a chance to fight back. Capitalizing on the Empire's sudden weakness, Jack Steele led the charge in a daring offensive. Ships from Earth's fleet, battered and scarred from previous battles, rallied together to strike at the heart of the alien invasion. The skies above Earth, once calm and unperturbed, became a battlefield filled with fire and fury. Explosions lit up the heavens as both sides clashed with everything they had left. Humanity's Air Force engaged in high-speed dogfights, while space battles raged above, with warships firing their remaining weapons in a desperate attempt to gain control. The human forces, although outnumbered and outgunned, fought with everything they had. It was a battle of willpower, of survival against impossible odds. The human soldiers, who had once been cowering under the weight of the Empire's overwhelming power, now stood as defiant warriors. As the aliens faltered, Earth's forces pushed forward, fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their planet. The chaos of battle echoed across the galaxy as the seemingly unstoppable Empire was forced to retreat. In the midst of the battle, the true scale of humanity's resilience became clear. On the ground, soldiers fought valiantly to hold their ground against alien invaders. In the air and in space, fighter pilots darted through the wreckage, dodging laser fire and launching strikes on vulnerable alien ships. Every move was calculated, every attack filled with purpose. The relentless spirit of Earth's defenders burned brighter with every passing minute. The warships of Earth's fleet, though battered and broken, became a symbol of humanity's will to fight and survive. As the battle reached its peak, Steele's forces launched their final strike, an all-out offensive aimed directly at the heart of the Galactic Empire's fleet. Their target was the Empire's flagship, the colossal ship that had been the nerve center of the invasion. It was there that the Empire's most powerful weapons were controlled. It was there that the fate of the war would be decided. As Earth's forces surged forward, they faced one final challenge. The Empire's leader, who had watched with cold, calculating eyes as his fleet tore through Earth's defenses, was not about to go down without a fight. But despite the Empire's desperate attempts to regroup and push back, it was clear that victory was slipping away from them. The once confident leader of the Galactic Empire, who had believed the destruction of Earth was inevitable, found himself with no options left. His fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable power, was now in disarray, unable to fend off the human resistance. The flagship, which had been the Empire's pride, was now being torn apart by the relentless assault from Earth's forces. Explosions rocked the ship's core, and debris scattered across space. The flagship, once a shining monument to the Empire's might, was now a floating ruin. The leader, watching the destruction unfold, realized too late that his empire was falling apart. There was no longer any chance of victory. Forced into a retreat, the Empire's leader had no choice but to abandon the battle. The destruction of the flagship marked the turning point in galactic history. The Galactic Empire, which had once dominated countless worlds, was now a shattered force, Defeated by the very people it had once considered insignificant, the victory was not just a triumph of military might, but a triumph of the human spirit. Against all odds, humanity had won. Earth had survived. However, the cost of victory had been immense. The war had taken a heavy toll on humanity, and the scars of battle would remain for generations. Thousands of lives had been lost, from soldiers on the front lines to civilians caught in the crossfire. The cities that had once been thriving hubs of civilization now lay in ruins. The war had left its mark on every corner of Earth, but despite the devastation, humanity stood victorious. They had fought for their survival, for their home, and they had won. As the dust began to settle, Steele and his team stood among the wreckage, gazing up at the remnants of the alien fleet. Their mission was complete, but the cost of their success was heavy. The memory of the fallen soldiers, of friends, family, and comrades lost in battle, would stay with them forever. They had won, but at what cost? The war had been brutal, and the road to recovery would be long and difficult. But in that moment, standing victorious, humanity knew one thing for certain. They had proven that no matter how advanced the enemy, no matter the odds stacked against them, they would never give up. Earth had fought back, and Earth had won. The Galactic Empire, once a force that threatened to conquer the galaxy, had fallen. Its leader, once sure of victory, now faced defeat and retreat. Humanity had risen from the ashes, stronger than ever, and the galaxy would never be the same. The story of their resistance would be told for generations to come, a tale of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable will of humanity to protect its future. The war had ended, but the scars it left behind were deep. As Earth's cities began to rebuild, the people of the planet faced the daunting task of healing from the devastation. The victory over the Galactic Empire was not without its costs. Countless lives had been lost, and the heroes who had stood at the front lines, men and women like Sergeant Bonner and many others, were gone. Their sacrifices would never be forgotten, but the weight of their loss was heavy. Jack Steele, the leader who had steered humanity through its darkest hour, stood amidst the rubble, reflecting on all that had been lost. Though the alien invaders had been defeated, there was no sense of true celebration. The victory was bittersweet. Jack thought about Sergeant Bonner, the brave soldier who had laid down his life to protect civilians. Bonner's younger brother, who had died during a mission to infiltrate the alien fleet, was another painful reminder of the cost of war. Every fallen soldier, every lost civilian, was a price that had been paid in the fight for survival. Jack felt the weight of these losses, knowing that they were the true cost of freedom. Yet, as the world began to rebuild, so too did humanity's spirit. The destruction caused by the Galactic Empire's invasion had left the planet in ruins, but the resilience of Earth's people was unmatched. The cities that had once been reduced to rubble were slowly coming back to life. People worked tirelessly to repair what had been destroyed, to rebuild their homes, their families, and their lives. The world was scared, but not broken. The victory over the Galactic Empire had proven something powerful to the universe. Humanity would never bow to tyranny. Despite being outclassed, outnumbered, and outgunned, humanity had fought back. The invaders, who had once thought they could crush Earth without a second thought, had been forced to retreat. The Galactic Empire had underestimated the strength and determination of humankind, and that mistake had cost them everything. Jack Steele stood among the ruins of the alien fleet, looking out over the wreckage. The massive ships of the Empire, once symbols of power and destruction, now floated lifeless in Earth's orbit. The battle had been won, but the war had come at a great cost. Jack knew that the memories of the fallen would live on, shaping the future of Earth. His thoughts were interrupted as he looked up at the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight began to break through the darkness. The skies, once filled with the fire of battle, were now clearing. Earth was healing. The planet's recovery was slow, but it was inevitable. Earth had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. The people had proven that no matter what was thrown at them, They would always fight back. Jack knew that humanity had come together in a way that no one had ever expected. The war had united Earth's nations, forging alliances and bonds that would last for generations. The world was different now, stronger, more united, and ready to face whatever came next. As Earth's people worked to rebuild, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it meant to fight for survival, to protect their home at all costs. The Galactic Empire had learned this lesson the hard way. Never underestimate humans. They had fought not just for survival, but for their future, and they had succeeded. But Jack also knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The Empire was gone, but there were always new challenges on the horizon. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had proven that it was strong enough to defend itself. Yet there would always be those who sought power, who sought to dominate others. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity would never stop fighting. They would rebuild, grow stronger, and rise to meet whatever challenges came their way. As Jack stood on the edge of a new dawn, watching the first light of day spread across the earth, he felt a sense of peace. The battles were over for now, and humanity had triumphed. The future was in their hands, and they had earned the right to shape it. The final moments of the war were behind them, but the story of humanity's resistance would be told for generations. The lessons of this victory would be passed down through the ages, that no matter how overwhelming the odds, no matter how powerful the enemy, humanity would never back down. They would fight for their home, for their freedom, and for their future. The Galactic Empire had learned that lesson all too well, and Jack Steele knew that no one would forget what had happened. As the world continued to rebuild, Jack Steele's thoughts turned to the future. The battle was won, but the fight for humanity's survival would never truly end. There would always be threats, always be enemies who sought to destroy what Earth had built. But Jack believed in humanity. He believed that, no matter what came next, Earth would face it with courage, resilience, and hope. And with that belief, he knew that humanity's future was bright. The sun rose higher, casting its light over the earth. The sky was clear, the air fresh, and the world, though scared, was healing. The fight had been long, and the cost had been high. But humanity had endured. The battle had been won, and with it, a new beginning had been forged.